Welcome to Healthcare Quality and Risk Matters, the show where we dive into the topics that matter most in healthcare quality and risk management. Wondering about patient safety, quality improvement, or risk mitigation, but weren't sure who to ask or were afraid to ask? Well, you're in the right place. We create a safe and judgment-free space to explore these critical topics together that will leave you informed and inspired to make a positive impact on healthcare and patient outcomes. So let's learn and grow together because healthcare matters.
Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this March edition 2025 of Healthcare Quality and Risk Matters. My name is Gary Bierc. I am the CEO of Aperitisoft Healthcare, and I am joined by my two esteemed colleagues. We have Robert Santamoor, who is, we gonna call him Rob, our CEO, and we've got Dr. Timothy Brown, who is our head of customer success. And those two gentlemen are your healthcare experts. I'm just this risk management guy tagging along. But we have a lot of great things to talk about today. We're excited because we're going to be talking about patient safety this month, and we're going to do a couple things a little differently. Before we begin, Rob, let's make sure that everyone out there gives us a shout out. Let us know where you're coming from, where you are, what state, and where you're sitting, basically, so we can give you a shout out as well. Hey, look, give us your comments, give us your questions. While we're going through this entire thing, we'll stop. We'll address those things throughout our podcast today. So back to the topic. Guys, we're talking about patient safety. Rob, you put together for us a beautiful slide that lays out what the patient safety management process is supposed to look like. Why don't we start there, and we'll see where our conversation goes.
Sure. For those that are audio only tuning into the podcast, the slide is a circular image that shows how cyclic there's patient safety is. There's in order to master patient safety management, it needs to start with identification or incident reporting.
Hey, Rob, can I make one little caveat to that?
Yeah.
That this is what patient safety is supposed to be.
I love that you're highlighting that.
Yeah,
I love that you're highlighting supposed to be. And
Yeah.
so this is there's ideal state rather than current state. This is what we're hoping healthcare will look like. There's in the future. There's with adopting the right processes and having the right knowledge on the how to. So through the identification phase, there's often that starts with incident reporting or risk assessment. Then moving into investigating, there's whatever that either incident or assessment finding was. From that investigation, moving through the circle into a root cause analysis, finding there's the most apparent and true root causes.
So these are the why questions, right?
These are your 5 whys.
Mm-hmm.
It can be through your Swiss cheese diagram or your bonefish diagram. There's your group meetings for your why questions. There's getting to those parent cause and root causes. Then you have analytics. I find that this piece is missing.
So you're saying is that often people skip this step altogether.
Yeah, so I think that we in healthcare see root cause analysis as an analysis. There's of the entire safety scenario, of the entire management process, of the operations around the incident or assessment finding. But that's not true. That's just the single focal point. That's just a very linear, there's point in the assessment process. And then the analytics, adds in all of the other factors that could be affecting. There's the incident and the impact that incident can have on patients, the organization, or the community. And it's that impact piece that is really important, helping us to triage, resource allocate, and truly understand the importance of some of these safety incidents or safety assessment findings.
So what you're saying is that when you get to analytics, you're trying to take a lot of the qualitative data you've gathered from incident reporting through your root cause analysis and melt that down into some type of scoring mechanism that can help to prioritize and also assist in how you monitor the results of all this on the back end.
Yeah, you said that way better than I did. So yes, all of those words.
Risk guys have something to offer every once in a while.
And yes, making it truly measurable, which again, it's a circle, right? It's cyclic. This is all one process feeds into the next and is dependent on the next to keep a continuous momentum of patient safety management.
Right.
Then you move into corrective action. How are we correcting the current problem? It is separate from preventative action.
Oh, okay. All right. So there's a big distinction here. So I remember you two guys saying to me many a time that a lot of hospitals think that corrective action is preventative action.
Absolutely. I see it all the time. I see CAPAs and CAPs coming in, whatever you call them at your institute. There's saying, oh, you know what? We did a coaching session one-on-one with that staff member. We launched education to the whole unit. Corrective action, preventative action done. Okay, I can see the argument to where providing education can support preventative action, right? We're now aware. It brings awareness.
Yeah, awareness.
But awareness is not a quality control. That's not a preventative action. You're not doing anything. It's very passive. That if anything, it's a corrective action. There's how are we fixing, mitigating, there's the current risk. And then how are we preventing it from happening again? They're really two very separate things that we have to think through, as one thing is just a precursor to the next. It's not grouped together in one checkbox to say we did our CAPA. We want it to be effective. We want it to be long-term. We want to reduce waste, and we want to prevent incidents from happening again, especially patient safety incidents.
That's interesting because, fixing the immediate problem doesn't necessarily make sure it'll never happen again. And particularly in hospitals, I can imagine we have multiple floors, multiple departments, multiple, disciplines. Fixing it in one place doesn't mean it's going to be fixed everywhere.
And Agreed.
That's totally true.
I had a mentor and a supervisor many years ago ask me if I believed that all of the doctors and nurses and other professionals in healthcare, truly wanted to do the right thing more often than doing the wrong thing. And I was like, well, of course they do. That's why they went into healthcare. And they're just like, okay, then stop assigning. There's all of your CAPAs. There's to the learning management system. There's for that particular person to do better. There's stop referring them to HR for a coaching, counseling session or other HR pathways. Because what we're saying by doing that is that that's a people problem. And if it's a people problem, then people are not in the right career. Most likely, it is a process problem. It is a quality control problem. There are other confounding factors. And you need to consider that. There's when you are assigning. There's corrective actions. And I loved that, and because it did change my perspective, and I went from this very linear, or almost closed-minded. There's perspective of, okay, well, that person made a mistake, so let's correct that one person. Mm-hmm. Okay, well, that person didn't want to make the mistake. What contributed to that, right? So like looking at my analysis, looking at my root cause, there's feeding that into how am I going to correct it? And I'm not going to prevent it with that one person. I'm going to prevent it with everybody. Right. What quality controls are going to prevent it with everybody? And then another piece that's really missing most of the time is the monitoring and reporting. And I don't mean just like external reporting, right, where we're telling Department of Justice or Department of Health or Joint Commission. There's also internal reporting. There's dashboards. There's line of sight. There's true quality overviews of risk, quality, and compliance across your organization. Like really having a pulse of what's happening and how all of these pieces fit together.
So let me ask you, this is a really important question. Can you technically, can you have an effective monitoring and reporting program if you're not doing analytics?
So because you said effective, the answer is no.
So the data that by not doing proper analytics, the data that management's getting is probably not as relevant as it needs to be, and can often be misleading. Okay, that's an important point of all this.
We'll call it a difference of opinion I had with a group of hospital executives, and this is back in 2020. They presented me, I was consulting, they presented me with a huge, there's workbook of hundreds of tabs. It felt like it wasn't really hundreds, but it was close. There's of all of this quote unquote quality data. And they had a full-time person, their entire job was to fill out these worksheets inside of this big Excel workbook. And they were so proud of being able to narrow down and say, Rob had 3 patients fall on him yesterday. Or Timothy passed 2 trays that he should not have passed. Or Gary didn't put out 2 wet floor signs. And they had a lot of numbers associated with a lot of different incidents that you could manipulate to whatever you wanted. Which was great, but not a single function in any of those spreadsheets. Put any of those pieces together. There was no true oversight, and they were spending hundreds of man hours. There's trying to assemble data. There's from paper and pen forms that was not reliable, and it had no real long-term value or even short-term value because the correlating factors were not there. They weren't considered. There are these individual data points, and individual data points don't mean anything. If I walk up to some random person in the street and I say 13, that means so many different things to everybody. That doesn't make sense.
Right.
Right. And but if I add context to it, which is what a true safety management system does. It adds context to your reporting, to your monitoring, to your because you have analysis. Then you can do something. You can do something meaningful rather than wasting time.
You speak to a point, Rob, that really makes sense. When we're talking about safety management, it's more than just responding to incidences. It's really about building those systems, the culture, and really the processes that prevent harm from happening in the first place. According to the Agency for Health Research and Quality, nearly 1 in 4 hospital patients experiences harm during their care, and many of these are preventable. So what you're saying is, to your point of, if we just mention the number 13 randomly, those points mean absolutely nothing. But if we build the overall systems that are needed, integrate a safety management into the culture of the organization, and really develop those processes that connect the dots, it makes a lot more sense. And for some reason, we in healthcare, we don't get this, or we just haven't gotten to the point where that's become important enough for us to make the change that's necessary.
Agreed.
We didn't do it, guys, but I wish we had it. We could take the universally accepted, decades old, process known as the risk management process, and it can overlay that graphic precisely. The only difference is that it's not an incident reported, it's a risk identified. That's the main difference. And then you don't investigate a risk identified, you immediately go into root cause analysis.
Right.
Okay.
Because
and everything else is exactly the same.
Yeah.
So last month we were talking about reactive versus proactive. Still, this is reactive.
Oh, this is very reactive because this is after you find something, right?
Right.
And I would argue that even near misses and good catches are still reactive, right?
Yeah.
And
Absolutely. Which you have to have. Look, we are not advocating that you don't do this.
No, it's very important that you
Right.
do.
You have to do
Yeah.
this. The regulators require you to do this. You have to go through this process, but it should be number of incidents start to go up because everyone's reporting and giving data.
That's correct.
Then as you're going through this cycle, what you should start to experience is the bad stuff start to drop out of the register.
Absolutely. You want to see those high risk incidents go down.
Total number of incidents will start to come down and get to a point of asymptotic or consistent level that would follow and track proportionately with the size and growth of the organization. Right? I've seen this over and over and over again in the risk management world, that when you're doing it right, it looks like things are worse than they're not, right? And more reporting's good, right? It looks like the worst, but then boom, it goes down and then it levels into that many people call it the optimized level, right? It's an optimized level that the trade-off between risk and reward have been found. And now the organization is optimally getting a return on their risk going forward.
You spoke about those policies, and I think Rob hit a portion that we could really spend all day on. It's the psychological safety that really drives incident management. When employees feel safe enough to report, those incidences are going to naturally go up. But if they're afraid to report these overall incidences because either they're going to get a write-up or worse, they'll get fired or something beyond that. Then they're not going to report this information. And you'll see it all the time. You'll see incidences start to go down, but you see also patient safety issues start to rise. But where is the line? Where do we find that overall bordering? It's not just following policies, but it's building out the space to be able to report those overall incidences and make corrections as necessary, which is what we showed in the chart.
You guys know my mom was in the rushed to the hospital last weekend. And, she's doing great now. So everybody, don't worry. Any friends out there, mom's doing great now. But it was very scary, very touch and go. But she ended up with a very large ulcer in her stomach that was bleeding, that caused a lot of problems. She had yet to be scoped. She had a CAT scan that said that is probably the problem. I show up to see her the first day that she was admitted into the hospital, and somebody gave her orange juice. Now, maybe I'm just a plain old common sense guy. How can that happen? Right? It should never happen. Now, I personally am afraid to go and complain or do something at the hospital because I don't want anybody to get fired. Right? So I can only imagine if you're working there and you see something, are you going to be comfortable enough to report it and not be in fear of your job or somebody else's job being lost, right?
And that's what we advocate with for all you listeners and viewers. We advocate for that just culture. There's that Dr. Brown is speaking to, because we want everybody to feel there's empowered to report an incident and know that there's not going to be a negative reprisal toward you, that something is actually going to get better, because we know there's within the first 15 minutes of talking to a new client, whether or not they have a strong quality program or whether they have a poor quality program, by the number of incidents and the response to, let's get your incidents going up.
And the way it should be, Rob, it should be, give us everything. And people are going to give you complaints. They're going to be whining about everything. Well, that's what quality management people are for. They know what the weed in the chaff is.
Yeah,
right.
We want all of that information because we want to do better. We want people to be able to say, this patient should have been on a clear liquid diet. And one, did that order go in? And if it didn't, who didn't do it?
Yeah.
And then two, why? And then why? And why? And why? And I'm asking all of my why questions, and I'm figuring out, this was a documentation error or a communication error between the doctor and the nurse. And the nurse put in X, or the doctor put in X. And when food service brought it up, they didn't check it. There's
medical doesn't check what food service does.
Right.
And this hospital, I'm not going to name the hospital, but this hospital, they're not checking what food service is doing. Now, you told me that when somebody has an ulcer that now is diagnosed, one of the things early on you avoid is dairy products.
Dairy, and you also don't want, there's things that are, there's maybe intense on the intestinal line or
so
gastric line,
last night,
like orange juice.
She progressed to real food. Okay.
Yeah.
And guess what was brought for her to drink last night?
Milk. And
I mean, you can't make this stuff up.
Yeah.
Nurse never said a word. Nurse never did a thing. Right.
And what you're looking for is the broken chain somewhere.
Yeah.
So somewhere in this process, there was a broken chain. And without a clear-cut process that you can identify this broken chain, then you go into the cycle of trying to figure it out without having as we're saying, that clear process. So what we're introducing is the understanding of building out that clear process. Pretty much can guarantee there's not one system that can do the entire chain and do it effectively is what we're trying to pull out of the conversation.
So if we were to go around, guys, that's a great what I'm trying to think of the right word now. Springboard. Great springboard point to go from. So let's walk around, Timothy, the process itself. Okay. And for all you guys out there that are in hospitals or in healthcare organizations, I'm going to ask you to come to your mind when we go into each step, what system, what software, what application are you using to help you with those steps? So let's start right from the beginning and let's talk about incident reporting. Okay. So we're in incident reporting. What's coming to your mind? Is it a single system? Is it a system that's doing other things? What is it? Now, Rob, we know that there are several competitors out there that do incident reporting. Competitors to Aperitisoft Healthcare, but they stop there. They really don't go anywhere else. So,
Gary, I get nervous about the systems that don't, or the organizations that don't have a system in place too, as well. So if you're still using Excel sheets or a document process to track this information,
or Adobe Forms or Clipboard,
it's time to have a conversation.
We need to have a conversation. Talk about it for a second. A little sidebar. We have it's not even a hospital. It's just a long-term care assisted living facility, and the drop in severe incidents by using a system like Aperitisoft is incredible. I mean, just it went from cutting down to what about 10% of what they were before within a few months. And it was a combination of that culture Rob was talking about, getting the incidents in and then immediately analyzing and get the corrective and preventative actions in place so that it doesn't happen again, and do it in a way where everyone's on board. That's all part of the team. And what a big difference. Now they are small and it's a microcosm, but I'm trying to let everybody know, look, it can happen at the smallest level of an organization.
Yeah.
You have to be a monster hospital to see these kinds of results and see the returns on it. But all right, going back to this to the cycle here, though. I mean, there are lots of systems that will do incident reporting.
That's correct.
But if you think about it, this is a 7-step process.
Correct.
Right. So if you're engaged with a company that only gives you that one step, why would you stop there?
Well, what stresses me out as a hospital quality, compliance, and risk leader is the actual physical gaps created when you do not have a comprehensive, when you don't have a system that really circles all of this for you, right? Like it ties it all together. So I have a hospital that I used to work with that had a separate team. There's for 4 of these functions, which was their complete system. It was about 4 of these things out of the 7. And I would say their quality value, if I was to sign it out of 100, would be somewhere in the 60 percentile. And the thing is, that hospital had brilliant people who all wanted the right thing. They absolutely preached for high incident reporting. We want everybody to report. They had the right culture. They wanted to respond to everything. They worked really hard There's off of every single incident, audit finding, assessment finding that came in. They wanted to be a high reliability organization. They wanted to be the pinnacle of healthcare.
Right, right.
And unfortunately, they couldn't get there. And the reason they couldn't get there is because they were always chasing their tail, because they're constantly having to jump these huge gaps. That stuff was falling through all the time. And no matter what I tried to build, it became impossible to really reach that high status that they were looking for with all of these gaps in their process, especially analytics and monitoring and reporting. And then that divide between your CAPA, right? Corrective action, preventative action.
Yeah. You know, what's interesting too, when I look at this cycle, there are those systems out there that claim they're giving you the ability to document how you investigate in your root cause analysis. So that they can do that. And they're claiming to be the premier safety organization, safety systems that are existing out there. Now, if you want to move into corrective action, preventative action, there's a separate module for that. Is that correct, Rob? It's not like it's one seamless system. You have to get another module that allows for you to do that. And you have to cut and paste data from one place to the other, correct?
You do have to transfer data. And I don't even know that, although there are claims of there's the ability to do like an RCA or a primary assessment or investigation, it's really just a free text box, right? It doesn't really bring you through like a healthcare process. That's what healthcare needs. It needs defined parameters for what we're assessing consistently over time across all of your incidents, to come up with really good information to make strong decisions about clinical operations, general operations, the financial health of your organization, and patient safety.
Yeah. So we got about 3 to 4 minutes left here, guys. So let's kind of bring this home. All right. What is missing? If you're out there, you've got systems. You may be using Excel for some things. You're using a big vendor for incident reporting, maybe even all the way through to root cause analysis. Very few people are using that same system, even for preventative action, corrective action. But here's the problem. None of them are giving you true analytics that is seamless in this process, so that when you get to monitoring, you actually have a metric you can be watching change on and seeing it work towards improvement. That is what's needed. And, you know, folks, I'm going to put in a pitch. Aperitisoft Healthcare, as far as I know, is the only software application that can do this for you. And we would like to hear from you. Guys, give me some final thoughts, and let's see if there's any questions we can go to. I think we should probably do that before we wrap it up for this afternoon.
I have a final thought, if you don't mind.
Sure.
We in healthcare, like I said at the beginning, all want to do the right thing for the right reasons. In order to truly improve our system of healthcare, which we all know is not a healthy place right now. Healthcare is not stable. There's staffing is unknown. There's reimbursements are unknown. Contracts are iffy. There's all around. It's just rough. We need to have, there's strong and intelligent processes built. In order to improve, close any gaps that are there, and innovate. And innovation is near impossible unless we truly know what gap we're trying to fill. And the only way you're going to know that is with a really well-mastered safety management program.
Yes.
So your organization needs to adopt something. They need to adopt that culture. They need to adopt the technology. They need to adopt, there's that, and buy into, there's mastering quality in order to innovate and get through this huge slump that healthcare is in.
Timothy, you have a final thought?
I do, yeah. Just to kind of sum what Rob actually said, I would say that mastering safety is not really about checking boxes or meeting some kind of minimum requirements. It's truly about embedding safety into the very culture of our organizations that we work in. It's about creating that environment where safety is a shared responsibility and a core value, not just a task or a checklist or check the box activity. We can't overlook the role of technology and predictive tools as well. These are game changers when it comes to identifying risk early, and giving us an opportunity to prevent harm before it actually happens. And finally, I want to say building resilient systems is really preparing us for the unexpected, whether it's clinical events or a system failure or even a crisis. Resilience really ensures our teams are ready and our patients stay safe. I really encourage all of our listeners to reflect on your own organization's approach to safety. Where can you excel, and where is there room for you to grow as well?
Yeah, absolutely. From our audience, guys, were there any comments, questions we want to highlight before we wrap it up for this afternoon?
Well, we have quite a few people who have made comments to us. We appreciate all of you for doing that and engaging. It does look like we have organically answered and addressed everybody. So if anybody has anything additional, please reach out to us. There's scrolling along the bottom of our screen is insights@aperisofthc.com. Please feel free to reach out or reach out to one of us directly. There's after the show.
And we're going to ask you guys something out there. Go ahead and like this this podcast. Share it with friends if you don't mind. Follow Aperitisoft on LinkedIn. We would appreciate it, and specifically our Aperitisoft Healthcare page. We have a sub-page on LinkedIn. Please get out there and follow us. We would love to have you be part of our family. We are going to wrap it up for today, and we are going to be doing a live after show. So that'll be coming up. You want to, Timothy, give them an idea of how they can find us on the after show?
Yeah, I actually put the link for the after show in the chat. So feel free to just copy and paste that into your URL. It's a YouTube link. We'll be on in just about 2 minutes or so.
Yeah, so there we're going to really lift up the kimono, and we're not going to hold anything back about this whole topic for this week. And next month, Rob, what is our topic for next month?
Donate life.
Donate life. Oh, wow, that's going to be an interesting podcast. So we're going to ask you guys to look for us last week of April, and we're always on a Wednesday at noon. Be looking for us on LinkedIn, and we'll see you then. So thank you, everybody. We ran a little over. We apologize, but an intense topic this month, so we've enjoyed it. Thank you, everybody, for being here.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye-bye.